up, CT? I'm here for episode 99 with Sam Hadelman and Greg Goliardi. Sam is a graduate student at Fordham University. He graduated with a communication degree from Stetson University in DeLand, Florida.
Yes, sir. And I graduated from Fordham like 2 months ago.
Hey, okay, so you're a COVID graduate?
Yeah, COVID class of 2020.
Hey, same here, brother. So Sam also grew up in Connecticut and has been working in the field of journalism and radio since he was about 18. He started his career off at WNHH and then made his way to being a guest panelist on WNPR at 20 years old. He also won the Best Review in the State of Florida Journalism Awards in 2019 for his piece on Mac Miller swimming. And we will talk a little bit later on that. But Greg, could you also introduce yourself? Greg is are you guys co-founders of Cut Break? I don't know the proper terminology. Greg helped found Cut Break, which is the magazine that they have with Sam, and has been a best friend since what grade?
Well,
did you guys meet?
Well, we met briefly at like age 8, and we kind of rekindled like a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dope.
So he doesn't remember it, but I remember it that my aunt used to go to this like specific beach club.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember him and his friends would play soccer after school, and like I didn't really like it because I hate soccer. But
do you still hate soccer?
Still hate soccer.
Okay.
And then we both were like going to the beach at the same time. We would hang out, and then I didn't see him for a couple of years, and then we just met up it's actually funny, we got double booked to cover a show. That's how we met.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll tell like a little bit. I'll let Greg tell a little bit.
Yeah.
I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and an outlet was like, "Hey, do you want to cover Lil B?" And I was like, "Do I want to cover Lil B? Of course I want to cover Lil B."
The bass god, of course.
Yeah, like back as an internet kid, like Lil B was obviously really influential. And so I get there and I see like a kid with like a camera and a notepad, and I'm like, oh, he must be like writing for like another outlet. And then meanwhile, I've taken like a 2-hour train to get here and everything. And he's like, oh, like we're writing for like the same outlet. And I was like, oh, like this is great. And then that's how we met up, is that we both got double booked for the same show.
Yeah.
Greg, you have anything more to add?
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of funny because I remember Sam came up to me and he was like, listen, man, like, I don't want any rivalry between us. And it's funny because I thought the same thing, because I had always been following Sam. Like, I had seen his work on the internet, and being a hip-hop journalist from Connecticut, especially the area we are, it was rare. So I was like, wow, like this is somebody else that's doing what I'm doing. So I always just kind of like hovered in, and and even in a funny sense, he kind of motivated. It was a level of friendly competition. Even though I didn't know him, I was like, man, listen, there can't be two of us. Like, I'm going to get the interviews. I'm going to be the big star. But it's all friendly motivation to each produce our own content in our own respective fields. And then we went to the Little B show, and, we met up and we became great friends. And now we have a magazine.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah. And it was really, really cool. It was a really fun experience.
And it was funny because at that show, sorry to cut you off, Greg. At that show, this guy who has this band, and they're called Shame Penguin, he came up to me and I like told him the idea of the magazine, because I was always like, because I knew I had the tools to do it. I was the only music writer at my college newspaper. I was like the first person in like 4 years to write about current music at Stetson. And I saw how magazines were made. So I told the guy, I was like, man, I'd love to do a magazine about like Connecticut and like what goes on here if I like lived here. Because like at the time I was like covering shows in New York. Like the week before I had seen FKA Twigs. Like I was like covering like pretty big names. I was writing about that. I didn't really think that I would be back in Connecticut. And he was like, man, if you ever have time, like you owe it to the city to do this. You owe it to the state to do this. So that was kind of like the one of the bigger steps towards the idea.
Well, and it was funny because at the Little B show, I remember Sam came up to me, and I think it was towards the end, and he told me, I think the exact word was a newsletter, that he wanted to do something for Connecticut. And just like instantly I was like, dude, I've been wanting to do this for so long. And then, you know, it was kind of just like a perfect culmination of so much. I was like, dude, we have to do this. Like, you know, this is what needs to happen.
And that's the beginning of how it came together.
Yeah, and that was in January of I think it was 2020. It was 2020. It was 2020
Yeah.
2020 in January, and then we started the magazine over the summer because I remember Sam was saying like I have to finish up grad school and all this stuff, and it happened. That was when I learned that Sam was a man of his word, because a lot of people have done that. Yo, we got to do this, man. We got to link. We got to make something. You know, so many. But he was the first person I was like, I think he's serious. I think he really wants to do this, and it happened.
And look at how successful it was.
Yeah, so I mean, shout out to Little B.
That's so. It just sounds like you guys were destined from that story, being like knowing each other just a little bit from childhood. Like, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, like when I walked in Sam's house and I saw the vinyl collection, I felt like I was at home. You know, I was just like, wow, like when I hang out with people, like this is the environment I want to be in. Like he just understands so much stuff. It's really cool hanging out with somebody and not having to explain things, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. That's especially when you find that, you know, you have a best friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. It's really cool, man.
I'm glad people like my records, man. I'm kind of like a hermit when it comes to this stuff. Like I just like sit in my house. I like play my records in my bathrobe and like drink tea and shit. So to like have someone like come in and like, especially during COVID, because like before the pandemic, my collection was good, but now it's like immaculate. So it was cool to have someone like come in and like see like, oh man, this is what you got. This is what you got. Instead of like me trying to like tell my mom, this is who Biggie is. Like,
it was insane. Like he showed me the Barter 6 on vinyl and I had a heart attack. I was like, you actually, he has Party Next Door on vinyl. I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
I have 3 Party Next Door vinyls.
Which is amazing.
I'm just waiting for the first one. It's really hard to find.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's great. You know, I think the only vinyl that I have that I've gotten from modern age, when Lil Peep passed away, I was like a huge stan. I saw him about 3 weeks before he passed, something like that. And I was like obsessed with his first Come Over When You're Sober.
Yes.
So when the second one was coming out, you know, the only thing that I could do was support. So I instantly grabbed the vinyl, and I still have it unopened. I think it's still in the wrapper, just like sitting there, just like hanging up, because I ain't gonna touch that. That just means too much.
I really wish Hellboy was on vinyl. I would kill for a Hellboy.
Yep.
It's funny you say that, because when I collected vinyl, I bought Come Over When You're Sober Part 1 and Come Over When You're Sober Part 2. And I ended up selling my record collection. It's a really long story. That is the one record out of all of them that I had that I regret selling. Because like to be a Peep fan, it was different than music. It was like you had a real human connection. And I don't want to say too much because Clark told me he has some questions at the end where he asks if you want to interview somebody dead or alive. And I'll speak on it more there. But Peep, you know, we'll just kind of leave it at that. He was a very, very special person.
Yeah, man. What I'll tell you is that at the show, you know, the difference between I'm a stickler for like the small venue shows where it's an intimate setting, instead of like the Xfinity Center. So I went there, and it was a group full of literal stands sitting there, not caring who's to the left of them, who's to the right of them. They just had their phone up and they were in the moment. Some of them were alone. They weren't with friends, but they were there, and it was all the same group of people like, hey, we're here together to see this. And it just...
That's why he was so special, was because he made you feel like you had a friend. Like to get into him, you had to, you know, kind of be going through a lot. His lyrics, if you've listened, you know, you know what he was talking about. So it was like you had this person out there that just understood you. Like I don't really, now I do, but growing up, I was always like, I got to go places with people. But seeing Peep, I would want to be alone because it was always just me sitting in my dorm room in college and just him. So to ever like see him live, I wouldn't want there to be anybody else.
No, I feel that.
Yeah. So rest in peace. He was special.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So on a brighter note, Sam, what would be your top 3 modern rap vinyls that you have in your collection?
Oh man, let me take a look. I have obviously the Barter 6, as you already said, the limited edition red version. It's my prized possession. I have Jeffrey too, but I'm not going to put that in there. I have the original press of Ready to Die, which is really special to me because the one of the first hip hop songs I ever heard was "Who Shot Ya" by Biggie, like ever. And then I have, give me a second. I have some pretty great ones that I really have some.
Can I name one for you?
It's Reasonable Doubt. Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z. I have the original press.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, those are my top 3.
Can I throw one in, Sam?
Yeah.
You have Trap House.
Oh, I do have Trap House by Gucci Mane. I have the first mix. You're not gonna find that around a lot. I have the big 3. I have Thug Motivation 101 by Jeezy, Trap Music by T.I., and Gucci Mane, Trap House.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't you have a Japanese press of a certain record?
Mavi. Let the sun talk. I have the OBI press of that.
You truly are a connoisseur of the game, and
I try.
No, I respect it so much because usually I'm not around people that know a lot more than me, and you guys are really stumping me with all that you know, and I love to just soak in this knowledge.
I bet there's stuff that that like we don't know. It's all relative.
Very
true.
Well, Clark, you've also put me on to a lot of Connecticut-based hip-hop acts.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So
I don't dive too deep into the big acts anymore.
Right. Well, it's actually interesting because my piece in the Cut Break was a feature on Ghetto Guitar, and I actually found out about him through an interview that Clark did with him. And some of the questions I asked were like extensions off of Clark's interview. I remember being at a camp over here where I live and listening to the interview and using it as background knowledge. So I was like, wow, look at that.
That's so great. It's funny that you say that, and I remember you were telling me that before. But Mystery Girl actually had an interview with a couple artists that I was interviewing back like probably last year, and I used her as like prep work for my interview, and I was just appreciative of another creative like going out and asking the questions so that because you aren't gonna find on smaller artists, you're not gonna find the information. You have to actually go out there and look on your own.
Oh, sorry. Pardon
no,
me.
go ahead.
Also, shout out Mystery Girl Radio, one of the best journalists.
She's amazing.
Absolutely, and it's actually funny you say that because we've been talking about him a lot. But I was when I was getting into Mavi, I was watching all of his interviews, and then I typed in on Google Mavi, and I read Sam's piece. Sam has an interview with Mavi, I believe in the Fordham Ram, and I just not typing in Sam Hadelman or anything, typing in Mavi, and that interview coming up, and Sam putting me onto Mavi. It's very cool how it all comes full circle.
Everything in life is full circle. I started realizing that.
Absolutely. No, totally.
And I just wanted to go back to one point. You brought up Barter 6, and I just wanted to point out that really holds a special place in my heart. I found out back in 2015, my best friend's older brother passed away from heroin, and I was in New Jersey with my girlfriend at the time's family, and so I got on a train and I had to get back to Connecticut. But I think during that time I didn't have unlimited data yet, so you had remember back in the day when you had to download albums to make sure that you had it on. So I had 2 albums that were modern albums at the time that I had downloaded, and it was 2014 Forest Hills Drives and the Barter 6, and I will tell you.
What a special album! I literally skipped school. I skipped school that day when I heard the Barter 6. I showed up 4 hours late to school, and they were like, "Where are you at?" And I'm like,
rightfully so.
It's not your business.
I was listening to the project.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Professor, you did not make with that. So you know,
Oh, this was
you're gonna
high
have
school.
to.
This was high school, and
Oh wow, wow.
I don't ditch class. Like I went to in college. I maybe missed 2 classes. In high school, I wasn't even allowed to. Like when my appendix broke, my mom thought I was faking it, type shit. And so I wasn't really allowed to like skip school like that. But I had like a long drive, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna take the scenic route today and listen to the Barter Six.
That's great.
Hell yeah, no, hell yeah,
Such a good project.
absolutely.
All right, so let's actually dive into that swimming piece that you were talking about, or that we were talking about before. So how did that come into fruition?
So Mac Miller was actually the first artist whose album I ever downloaded ever, like ever in music. I got sent to this camp and for the Hyde School in Woodstock. They closed down a couple of years ago, but they have schools all over. And I was hanging out with some kids, and it was like I kind of got sent there by accident, and I was like a little younger than like most of the kids there.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, man, like, and I was a music head back then, but like I only listened to old music, and that's a weird part about my music journey is that like I wasn't listening to like the music of my time. I really liked like Wu-Tang and Nas and Biggie and Pac and Snoop Dogg. So someone was like, "Oh, you listen to Mac Miller?" And of course, I was like 13. I was like, "Yeah, man, like of course I do." And then I was like, "I gotta go check this out." So I went on. I found Dat Piff. I listened to Kids, and then I just kept like listening to his music, and like watching him evolve. And honestly, I had a really rough year when Swimming came out. I had a super rough year, just like with my own mental health. And that album, like, I'd never really connected with a record like that to the point where something could like bring me up or help me when I'm down. You know what I'm saying? So they asked me if I would do a write up for it after he passed, and I really put my all into the piece. And it was crazy to see the reception because beforehand, like people were like, "Oh, we have a newspaper." Like that was like the reception that my pieces used to get. You know what I'm saying? And I should also add this was like my first journalism gig, really like where I was like asked to constantly write about things in like the music world. Because like my first job was the Independent, but I was covering events, covering shows. It was like the first time where someone like asked me like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" So I really put my all into the swimming piece, and the reception was crazy. People came up to me and they're like, "I swear on my life," they were like, "Yo, I cried." Like something I wrote made multiple people cry. That was crazy to me. I was like, "What is going on?" And people just kept talking to me about it, like, and then at one of my newspaper meetings, they were like, "Oh, we submitted you for a Society of Professional Journalism Award," which is like the highest honor you can get as a journalism student. And Stetson hadn't been in contention for a minute, and I ended up winning. I ended up winning the best album review in a college newspaper, which was crazy to me. Like
Congratulations, man.
just
That's
seeing it
awesome.
all come like full circle. And I'll send you the piece, but it was this crazy like Colin McEnroe read my piece from NPR, and he's like a mentor to me, someone who like really helped me through everything. But like to have like people who are like in their 60s and 70s really enjoy it, and have people in their 20s cry to it, like it was just like it was one of the cooler moments. I have it framed. I have it framed in my hallway. That's how that happened.
I love that. So I wanted to ask you. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, just say it was a cool moment. It was a cool moment for me.
Yeah, no, bro. That's to write something on something that makes such a difference in your life, especially after such a heartbreaking passing like Max. I know his entire fan base needed just like a comforting, and your piece was probably very comforting to those that felt like they lost a friend.
Yeah, and I think it was just like it was weird for my writing because if you read me before, I'm usually pretty objective. I usually try to keep things about the facts. I usually try to keep things, you know, about what I really feel. But this was about me and the piece, and me and the album, so, like how I felt about it, how it made me feel. And I usually don't. And I'm probably not gonna write like that again. Like that was like a once in a like blue moon type of thing where I just was really on one that day. And yeah, it was cool to see the reception.
That's so great. So what I wanted to ask both of you is, inside of the journalism world, who are your top 3 inspirations that you guys have looked up to that have helped shape you as a journalist today?
absolutely.
Man, can you give me like a minute? I
Yes,
can't
of
give you
course.
3. I could give you a couple. Gary Suarez, Evie Annie, Nazma Sharif, William Ketchum, Rob Markman, Nardwar. I could go on and on. Taylor Crumpton. I stand journalists. I follow them like hip hop artists. I could do this all day. Charles Holmes from the Rolling Stone. Grant Rinder from he's written a couple pieces. There's like a ton of people who I really really fuck with and that have really like helped me out, especially Gary Suarez. He actually retweeted and read the Cup Break magazine and really enjoyed it. He writes over at Forbes.
Yeah, shout out him because when I saw that, that was so cool.
Yeah, it was a crazy moment. Greg, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I wasn't saying anything. But I guess to answer your question though, for me it was one guy. It was a writer from Chicago named Ernest Baker, and I don't remember what piece it was. Well, to be honest with you, it was mostly his Twitter. His writing was incredible, and I got into his actual editorials and his op-eds. But I was just like a stan of his Twitter, and I felt like he was the first writer to just get it, he was saying things that I just understood, and I kind of just like really connected to him. He was a huge Lil Wayne fan. And I was always the guy that was like always riding for Wayne, because this was during the time when everybody was saying, oh, Wayne fell off. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. He can't rap anymore. And this guy was just riding for him. And I just fell in love with it and, ended up connecting with so many of his other pieces and just like following his Twitter and stuff. And it was weird because when I got into him, it was like a really down time in my life. I didn't really have like much going for me, and I remember like finding solace and comfort through his articles and through his like Twitter. Like I would read his Twitter, the same tweets over and over again, just like just for fun and just for enjoyment. I guess it kind of just held me down. But he is I actually purchased his book. Like he is the sole reason. If he did not exist, I really don't know if I ever would have been writing about hip hop.
And I got a couple more I got to throw in there. Andrew Barber from Fake Shore Drive.
Absolutely.
Up North Trips. Jeff Weiss from Passion of Weiss. Craig Jenkins. He's like the best journalist in the game.
Absolutely. David Drake, John Caramonica, Drew Millard. Shout out to Jinx at Complex. Like he was the first dude.
Shout out Yo.
He kind of paved the whole wave for like video interviews and just a lot of like video work, like being like a news anchor for hip hop. Emily Oberg, shout out to her.
Tia Hill from Genius.
Yeah.
Sorry,
absolutely.
This is like I've been waiting for this question my whole life. Like I literally.
I love it. I love it. This is great.
And I also do have to say, and this is probably going to be a little controversial, but this was before allegations and everything, but. I would not have started a podcast if it wasn't for Adam 22. Like I said, before allegations and before things got really weird, he was the first person that showed me like, yo, you can have like a hip hop podcast and you don't even have to be like a hip hop writer. You can just be a dude who loves this, just get a camera and just do it. So he was super, super influential. But like I said, this was before I knew of anything. So I just want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole list. I can't think of.
Yeah. Like shout out to like Emily Oberg. She was the first female that I saw doing this, and I was like, wow, this is just like the flyest shit ever.
And I should say some Connecticut people too while I'm at it. Paul Bass, Tom Breen, Markeisha Ricks. Clark, just cut me off. Go to the next question.
No, keep going.
I'm going to interject really fast, and this is going to be super corny, but Sam also played a huge role in that. Like, coming from where we're from, seeing a fellow writer doing it, he played a massive role. And also, we're talking about podcasts. Like, when I saw what Clark had, I was like, this is the No Jumper of Connecticut. This is the flyest shit ever. Like, he's really doing this. So that stuff was super motivational because we are from such a small state that you don't see a lot of this, and that was huge.
And Brian Slattery over at the New Haven Independent. That's the last one.
Brian Slattery, he gave me my start at the Independent, and is actually the reason me and Sam met. Brian actually double booked both of us. It was the greatest mistake in the history of Connecticut hip hop. So that was an awesome moment. Shout out to Brian.
That's great. And so the Snowsa article was through the Independent, right?
Yeah, and that's a cool story actually. That was a really cool moment for me. Shout out Snow. Um, so I just DM'd her. I DM'd her at like 8 p.m. at night because that was the start of the Sam Hadelman show. It was originally called The Intern, then it went to The Undergrad, and then it went to the Sam Hadelman show. Those are like the three names I went through.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I had never interviewed anyone in my life. Ever interviewed a single person in my life.
I respect it.
I literally just hit her up on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, do you want to do an interview?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure. Where do I pull up?" Like 5 minutes later, and she had been popping for a minute, and I thought it was real cool of her and real humble of her to just like, with no questions asked, just pull up to the studio in New Haven. And we did a quick interview. It was really fun. I actually just went back and watched it. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only like a year ago, and it was really fun. It was a really good time. And she was like, "Oh, do you want to come to this music video shoot for Yank Rhythm? So we're doing a remix with Young M.A." And Young M.A. was one of my favorite artists in college. Like, damn near, I knew every single Young M.A. song. Like, the shout out Young M.A.
I can see you really liking her music.
Yeah, for sure. Because I like things that occupy my brain, and her bars were just crazy. So I got my little camera. I had my notepad. I went to a strip club on a Wednesday at like 1 p.m. All business, you know what I'm saying? Like, and which was so weird. It was so weird. It was like the middle of the day, and I'm like, where I am. It was shout out the Perfectionist Lounge show. They're real, and like a lot of videos get shot over there. And it was a cool time to meet like a lot of Connecticut creators. Shout out Kev Combs. He's like one of the best videographers in Connecticut, bar none. I got to meet like a lot of cool people over there. It was a really cool shoot. Snow was super friendly. I was freaking out interviewing Young M.A. She was also fantastic. And then the article went out and it went crazy. Like when I say crazy, like 1,000 shares on Facebook. Like people went nuts about it. And like, because I really gave it my all. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was writing that piece, I really gave it my all because I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never seen anyone take the time to write about New Haven, or not New Haven, but like her like that. Let me rephrase her. Like I'd never seen, and she had gotten a write up in the Independent when she was popping, and the Yank Rhythm was like going crazy on World Star and stuff like that. But like I wanted to give her like the long form piece that she deserved, and I think I really did. And it was a really cool reception, and that article still follows me. Like people like still talk about it, which is really cool.
That's great. And that brings us into the conception of Cut Break. So you guys said, what was it, January when this idea was getting brought up, and then it started in the summer. And that's around the time you guys hit me up with it in the summer. So let's go back to January and start there, and you guys take me through the process.
So I had the idea just because like I knew I could do it. Like I said earlier, like I knew I could do it, and I knew that it was something that wasn't here, and I knew it was I had all the moving parts to do it. But I was in Brooklyn. That was the thing. And that was a time where my photography career was really like popping off. Like I was taking pictures of like Benny the Butcher. I was taking pictures of Dapper Dan. I was taking pictures of J. Cole at the time. So I was like kind of preoccupied with that. And then the pandemic hit and I had to move home. And to graduate grad school, you have to do a capstone project. And at first I was going to do a Brooklyn podcast about like what's going on in Brooklyn and hip hop. Because obviously a lot of shit's going on there, and I'm a big fan. And then I kind of said the idea to my teacher off rip. I was like, well, what if I did like a magazine? Would that be kind of crazy? And he was like, no. Shout out George Bedarky. He works over at Fordham. And I was like, man, I should reach out to Greg because I had mentioned the idea to Greg, and there's no one else I could really like do this with because I'm good on my own, but I need something else there to bounce ideas off, or just an echo chamber. You know what I'm saying? So I reached out to Greg, and Greg, if you want to tell how you felt when I reached out.
So I remember the initial moment, which was at the Little B concert, which I think we discussed on air here, but we ended up linking up there, and Sam, I think it was like during the beginning, or it might have been like right after the show, he told me like he wanted to start a newsletter or a magazine covering Connecticut hip hop. And instantly I said yes. It seemed like a no-brainer. Like, I had been following him, so I believed in him. I thought he was being serious, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity. Like, I had started a magazine in college with a bunch of people, and I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't my focus. Like, it wasn't a Connecticut-based hip hop magazine. And when Sam approached me with this, it was just like, I mean, what am I going to do? Am I going to say no? Like, the stars have finally aligned. And then, from that initial meet, we just kind of stayed in contact. And then, the pandemic hit, he came home, and we started linking up, and we started meeting. And, I'll let Sam kind of tell it from there.
Yeah. And then I just figured out, like, oh, I knew who I wanted to cover immediately. And it was Lee Bezel. I had tried to pitch it to an outlet. They didn't like the story. And that honestly is what lit the fire under. Like, I was like, well, it's not, they thought that it needed like more edits and stuff like
Yep.
that. And they thought they wanted to me to take it in a different direction. And I was like, man, I never want to have to do this ever again. Like, I never want to
Yeah.
have to like pitch my idea to someone, like about Connecticut. In the world,
Well,
I understand. But like, I felt like I could tell Lee's story really well, and I just wanted to do it on my own terms. So I was like, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it with Lee because I truly believe Lee's really talented and that he's going to be a huge artist.
He's amazing. So good.
Yeah,
well,
he's
it's
off the rip.
it was funny because Sam and I were having the same issues. Like, he was dealing with publications that weren't letting him publish what he wanted to, and I was dealing with the same thing. My story that ran in Cup Break went through the exact same thing. I had submitted it to a publication, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to do all these edits." And I was like, "These edits, they're not really important. They don't benefit this story. It's a bunch of information that it goes back to something I was saying earlier. It's really nice when you don't have to explain things that don't need to be explained." I was like, I wrote this piece for people that just get it and that just understand it. So when Sam came to me about starting a magazine, it was like, I'm finally going to be talking to the people where I don't need to explain stuff. I don't need to explain why by playing guitar on sold out dates is really important and is a big deal. I don't want to have to say, "Oh, well, have you heard of Gunna?" I want to just talk to the demographic who, have we heard of Gunna? All we did was listen to Drip Too Hard and Drip or Drown. So it was kind of this moment of, and it's going to sound super cliche, of kind of making ourselves our own bosses, cutting out the middleman and just being like, dude, let's do this. Let's just be our own boss and have our own magazine.
Love it.
That's pretty much how it started.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's see. With the first volume, you had all three of our stories, and then we have the Mystery Girl segment. How did you get in contact with Mystery Girl?
So I had been a fan of Mystery Girl Radio for absolutely forever, since I started doing this. Like, her platform is so thorough. She's really good with interviews. I like her segments. I actually ran into her at a protest in the summer in Bridgeport, but I was too nervous to say hi. I was just like, shoulder to shoulder, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna leave. And but she really does her homework. And I just reached out to her management, and I was like, hey, I would love for you to just give us your mixes, and we'd love to see what you want to put people onto. Because that was the thing, is that, like, it's not the Sam Hadelman magazine. It's not the Greg magazine. Like, we wanted it to be a collective of everyone's vision, hopefully represented with equal importance. And I think that's really what we came out with. And I'm hoping that we can get Mystery Girl Radio again for something, because I really think that she does quality work, and she's a quality journalist.
100%. And yeah, that's, it really felt honored when you guys reached out to me to be a part of this, because it's like, it showed me that, okay, one, Greg brought this up before, Sam, to know that there's somebody else that just said, screw it, I'm gonna actually do this, and then do it, and then, actually see a finished product, it really is driving. But then to also know that you guys thought, like, hey, CT Breakthrough is actually somebody that makes a mark on the culture, and we want them a part of it. It just was like, okay, what it made, like, revalidating all the 3 years prior leading up to it, I was like, oh, okay, so, even though I don't have 10,000 followers, the 1,000 people that do follow me actually care.
And, it's like when I was saying, like, making ourselves our own bosses, you do that with the intention to make other people their own bosses, and I don't want to say put people on, because the people that we brought on were already on. So it's like when me and Sam, a lot of this sounds cliche, but when me and Sam sat down and we put together a list of who we wanted to be in the magazine, it was like, there was no questions. It's like CT Breakthrough. Well, why? And it was like, what do you mean why? Like, the kids have been doing this. He's that dude. Everybody we went to have been doing their thing. And it like, to have a magazine without you, Mystery Girl Radio, and all the other contributors we had, it kind of wouldn't,
or at least try to get.
Kind of like wouldn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's how we felt. Is that like, we want to be like a canvas, you know what I'm saying? And that's what we want to be, is somewhere someone could pin up their work and be like, oh, we like this. And obviously, like, for it to continue, it's just going to come down to who wants their stuff on our canvas, who trusts our platform. And I hope that we get to a place where, like, we can get more people, we can get more artists, because it just feels like something that's kept Connecticut off the brink of where it should be, is that there's just not a media presence. There's not, like,
100%.
a centralized place. And I'm not even talking about, like, video. I'm talking about, like, writing, like, articles, like, pictures.
I needed a this side of the media to piggyback off of what I do, because I can reach one side of people with where my stuff is just raw. I'm not really too tailored. This is to the T, dotted your I's, crossed the T's, everything's great. You know how, like, hyped my parents were when they saw this, and they were like, I was like, yeah, but like that was all them. All I did was write the article, but they made it look like really cool. They were like, my dad was like, oh my God, you do this? And I was like, no, not really, but like I did.
Yes, you did, Clark. Yes, you did.
Hey, but what you did with the online thing is you guys, the cool thing about Cut Break and being a part of it is that with the breakthrough, I said, screw it, I'ma just run with it. The kind of like the Gary V approach, where you just throw shit at the wall and see if it sticks. But like with this, you guys are getting me to be a refined version of myself, and I feel like cool.
And honestly, it couldn't have been done without Hallie Pollard. Like, Hallie designed the whole magazine. Like, Hallie designed the whole website. Like,
shout out Hallie, that's
really
awesome.
Cool, but and honestly, how I met her is because she was the designer at my newspaper. So she designed most of my pieces, like, in college. When I didn't really get started in journalism until like my sophomore, junior year of college. Like, I went to college to be an audio engineer. That's what I wanted to do, and then I kind of like switched over to journalism. But Hallie, like, really, really put it together.
That's great. And how did you guys get in contact with Noah?
I went to I knew Noah in high school. We were part of the same Jewish fraternity, and that's how I met Noah. That is exactly how I met Noah. And he like saw me around, and like he would always like talk to me about music and stuff like that. And if you want to talk about someone who knows their shit, Noah Simon knows their shit plus some. He has some crazy opinions, but he really does know his shit. And I'm not even gonna get into them. But him editing, like, we wouldn't have been able to do this without Noah editing and like refining, because I'm raw. I don't like editing stuff. Like, usually when I write an article, I shoot it out, I check for spelling errors, it's done. Noah was like,
yeah, yep, I'm with you. I'm the same way. And when I saw all the little things he was doing, very impressed from my standpoint, because I was like, oh, I would have never thought that. I would have read this over 4 other times and still not thought that.
Yeah, couldn't have done it without Noah.
Yeah, no, Noah was super important. I remember I had met Noah at I went to high school with Noah, and I didn't know him personally, but we had friends of a friend, and all I knew was that he was a huge Kanye fan. So I was like, oh, that's cool, but like, I didn't know him. And then before the magazine, we linked up at a recording studio in Connecticut, and this was around the time that my first piece in the Independent went out. I did an interview with YouTuber Volksgeist. And Noah, we talked in person, and then we talked a bunch like through DMs. it had came to my attention that Noah wanted to write as well. So he was like, hey, like, how do I get involved with the Independent? So I tried to like set him up there or whatever. And then flash forward a couple weeks, Sam and I start talking about putting together Cut Break, and it just clicks. And I'm like, wait a minute, do you know Noah Simon? And he's like, oh, you know, of course I know Noah. And I was like, well, Noah actually wants to write. And he's like, oh my God, oh my goodness, that's incredible. So we just reached out to Noah, and he took full advantage of it. And little did we know, like, along with being an incredible writer, his editing, like, you got to know in life when to just shut the fuck up and just let somebody just work.
Yep.
Editing
100%.
with Noah, it's just shut up. Here's the piece. Just he's gonna tell you things that you're not gonna see. Believe it. It's true. He knows what he's doing. And I just remember sitting there, making fun of his higher education at McGill and just being blown away by his attention to detail.
That's great.
Yeah, man. Shout out Noah.
Yeah, no, shout out to Noah and your wacky music takes.
So my one last question I have about Cut Break is, what can the listeners know about Volume 2?
We've done the preliminary stuff. We're thinking about it, and we're putting together how we want to curate it. We want to make it a little different, a little more expansive. We want to cover some more people. Hopefully we can do some cool stuff with the release. They're just kind of hard in the pandemic. And because we're an independent institution, so it's kind of all on us. But expect something really cool. I promise.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
expect new collaborators.
Yeah,
One of the most exciting parts about the first issue was people reaching out and saying, "Hey, how do I contribute?" So look for some new names. Look for even more diverse pieces. You know, like it really expanding the boundaries of not music and art and culture. Like there's a lot to that. I don't want to say too much because we're very early in the process, but look for this issue to be more than just music, and to have a wide ranging cast of contributors.
I love it.
Yeah, that's and we're not just a music publication. We will take anything. We will take anything. We will make it work. Just reach out to us at cutbreak.mag on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fact. Please do that.
That's great. All right, let's dive into Preem now. So, Greg,
Cool.
This is all you. How did this come into fruition?
So Preem is a magazine that is owned and operated by Anthony Supreme, and Anthony Supreme is a videographer who does a lot of work for J. Cole. He was involved in the For Your Eyes Only documentary, the Revenge of the Dreamers documentary, and has an extensive resume of work with Cole and with other artists. I got put on to him because one day I was on Instagram, like most of us do. I was scrolling through my Explorer page, and I saw a magazine cover with, it was Jameson, I believe is his name, JMSNY. And why he was on the cover, and I clicked on it, and I ended up reading about the magazine, and in the end it was like he basically had like an open forum of a contact page, and I was like, fuck it, this magazine is cool, talks about all the shit I like, so let me just fucking hit this dude up. And I hit him up, sent over some work, and later that day I sent him an email, and later that day I'm driving to pick up my dad from work, and I see a text, and it goes, maybe Anthony Supreme. And he's like, hey man, like, what's up? I got your email. And like, it was like kind of that moment I was driving over a bridge, and like the sun was like fading, and it was like kind of like the sky was opening. I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to like have this opportunity? And sure enough, he was like, yeah, man, like, you can contribute. And from then on out, it sounds cliche, but he just started pitching artists my way. And when you work with somebody who has such an extensive resume, you're not getting pitched scrubs. You're getting pitched the big boys, like the major label guys, the guys that have songs that are 5 times platinum, that are on the radio. And I'm 23 years old sitting in Connecticut getting emails from publicists connected to, Atlantic Records and all these crazy places. And I'm like, wow, holy shit, like this is really fucking happening. And it turned into this awesome working relationship. He's given me, so much leeway to do so many things. He actually speaking of Little B, I actually interviewed Little B before the show where me and Sam met, and it was an incredible experience. And me and Preem have been working together for a long time. I say all that to say this. Recently, he, hit me up and said, hey, I have an interview with this rapper named Little Keed. And I was like, oh, wow, Little Keed. Like, I'd heard of Little Keed, but I didn't really know much about him. I wasn't like super into the music or whatever. However, this is also around the time that Sam and I had been working together. And the one thing I learned about Sam is Sam knows everybody in hip hop. So I was like, man, like, I wonder if like Sam knows enough about Little Key to do an interview. Like, I fucked with the dude, but I wouldn't have been able to do him justice. I call Sam up. I'm at the beach. I'm shirtless, looking ridiculous. Call him up and I'm like, hey man, I have an opportunity to interview Little Keed. Would you be interested? And before I could even finish the sentence, I've never heard Sam get so excited in my life. Yes. Oh my God. Like, are you fucking kidding me? The same reaction I had when Preem hit me up. I'm like, dude, yeah, no, this is like the real fucking deal. I put him in an email and he has the same shit. He's like, bro, I'm talking to fucking, so-and-so record label right now. I'm talking to fucking 300. Like, what the fuck is going on? And dude, next thing you know, Sam is now writing for Preem. He's getting all these incredible interviews. And it's actually really cool because like I was doing it for like a year before Sam, and then Sam just comes in the game, gets an incredible Little Key interview, and then just kind of takes the cake. I got to give it to Sam. I'm really prideful, but Sam is shitting on me right now. This dude just interviewed Hit Boy, okay? We're not doing any introductions. If you don't know who Hit Boy is, turn this interview off and just go somewhere else because we're not talking to you. He got a Hit Boy interview at the peak of this dude's career.
In 2020, like
in 2020, during a pandemic, the dude just produced Big Sean's album. He's doing freaking everything, Nas's album. And lo and behold, freaking Sam Hadelman lands this massive interview, and it's kind of going viral and stuff. So I'm going to let Sam take it from there, but that's kind of how that happened.
On to you, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Keed, I love trap music. Trap music, Southern hip hop's my first love. Like I love trap music, and that's something that makes me unique up here because because a lot of people haven't really left Connecticut or like New York, you know what I'm saying? So they listen to Jay-Z and shit like that, but like people don't understand that like
the South is where it's at, bro. Oh my God,
the South runs hip hop. The South runs
100%.
As Andre said, the South got something to say. And people don't understand that, like, in Atlanta and Florida, like, people listen to Gucci like they listen to Jay-Z up here. So I really fuck with Keed. It was an awesome interview. Funny story, when we did the interview, it was one of the best interviews he's ever had, according to his publicist. It was, like, my first interview for Preem. And that day, tape-a-call crashed. It completely crashed. And we lost the interview right after it was done. I, like, teared up. I freaked out. I got red. Like, I don't like things out of order in work. In life, my room's messy and shit, but at work, I really like my shit in order. So when I lost the interview, I freaked out. Like, I was like, this is the end of the world. And then his publicist called me up, and we just figured it out, and it worked out swimmingly. But, like, that was, like a nightmare scenario. So now I, like, double record everything. But Hit Boy was cool just because, like, Hit Boy, like, soundtrack to my whole high school. So I was like, of course I'll take this. You know what I'm saying? And he had such a record run in 2020. And it was cool to talk to someone about Juice WRLD, talk to someone about Nipsey, talk to someone about everything. And it was a crazy interview. And you know what? I'm just so blessed to have had the opportunity. And thank you, Greg. I promise you'll be writing articles cooler than mine in like a week. So don't even worry about it. It was a lucky grab. It was a lucky grab. It was really cool. And I have some cool stuff coming out soon. So.
And just a quick thing, like, the really cool part about working with Preem is you get to have conversations about things that you can only have with certain people. Like, I had the opportunity to interview Craig Zen, and Craig Zen was a close affiliate and a friend of Lil Peep. And when I started working with Preem, Peep had passed away. So a goal of mine was to interview anybody associated with Peep. And it wasn't even like an interview. It was personal questions, just, stuff I always wanted to know. So what's really cool about working with him is you get these opportunities where, only certain people know Peep, and there's only one Hit Boy, and, there's only one Little Keed. And it's really cool when you get to talk about music in that headspace. It's a really, really incredible opportunity. Preem, you are amazing, and just like thank you so much.
Shout out Preem, man, one of a kind.
Yeah, like I mean, it was like I had the opportunity to interview Jack Harlow and Drum and you know so many others, Mahalia, like sitting in the YouTube headquarters listening to Summer Walker with Mahalia was like one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like she needed to smoke a cigarette and she was like, yo, I don't have a lighter. I'm like, my little dorky hands like, I got a lighter. And it was cool, man. It's just like super awesome moments come from these opportunities.
That's so great. You know, I've yet to have my first industry experience. I have been sitting over here just focusing in on our local artists to the point where I have yet to go to any of these bigger people and reach out. You know, that's what I originally thought I was going to be doing when I started the breakthrough. But when I started narrowing my scope, and just like what you guys did with Cut Break, it's like when you realize that no one else is doing what you're doing for the place that you're doing it for, it's invaluable. It's
right. Well, and that's a really good point, because it's like Sam had just spoken about, like I haven't written for him in a minute, because it's hard to balance doing industry interviews and then working on Connecticut industry stuff. It's two very different sides of the brain. It's a lot to manage. So it can be like tough to kind of give you know, each interview subject your all, unless you dedicate, you know, your sole focus to one aspect.
yeah. 100%.
Unless you're Sam Hadelman and you can just freaking do everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Y'all are too nice.
Well,
hey, man, I just like reading, man. I just like reading and listening.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It's very true.
My mind works like a SpongeBob. You know how he has like all like the filing cabinets?
Yeah. You're just looking through it.
No, it's like literally how my brain works with hip hop.
Yeah, it's also really cool, like how like interviews connect and stuff. Like when I like, you know, like talking to Craig Zen about so much stuff, and then like connecting Peep and like learning about that. Like when Sam did his Keed interview, he had interviewed Mavi a while ago, and he was able to tie in the Mavi interview with the Keed interview, because I guess Keed had mentioned Mavi.
It was Mavi. It was Mavi. So Mavi's from North Carolina. Mavi is fantastic. Y'all should really listen to him. And funny story. I landed the interview because I caught him on the train. He did a show on the D train. I'll never forget it ever in my life, because I had to track the train from the Bronx to Manhattan, and make sure I got on the right train. Because if you know, it's not like there's like maybe people I'm in New York, like it's not like one subway just goes up and down. There's like 100 fucking million subways. So I was running up and down the platform looking for this guy performing on the subway. Left class early, which I was doing all the time. Still graduated cum laude, and I met up with him on the train, and I was like, "Hey man, like I'm a big fan of your music," like, and we just started getting to talking, and he was like, "Yeah man, like I love Keed. He's like glued to a kick drum," and I thought about that for like a week, and I was like, "Yeah, he's totally right," and then I got to bring that up to Keed, and that was a really cool full circle moment to connect two like completely different worlds. It was cool.
And let me say this, and I'm going to answer a question that you're going to ask later. You had mentioned something about like, what advice would you give to a journalist? Go for it. And any opportunity you have, go for it. Because what you're going to learn, they're all connected. Every little thing you do will come full circle. He interviewed
100%.
Mavi and then was able to interview Keed, and they connected. Like me and Sam, we just existing in the same space, we connected. Me and Clark existing in the same space, we connected. So my advice to answer that question, just go take the opportunities, because you never know what will lead to what, and doors open, and it's corny, but like the sky is the limit.
You know, it's funny because you're actually not veering off. We were going into the final questions, and we can just bring that one up right here, right now. So Sam, what would your answer be then?
Do your research. Pick something specific. Don't just try to be the journalist of the entire world. If you really want to get into something, be the foremost expert on it, because people really fuck with you for doing that. People don't And you know what? Cover stuff that you enjoy. Cover stuff you enjoy. Cover stuff you know about. Like, I'm not a connected person. Nobody. My uncle doesn't work at Republic. My cousin doesn't work in Atlantic. I'm not related to anybody. The only reason I've really been getting opportunities is because one, I hustled. I hustled my ass off.
Mhm.
Like I was getting into doors because I couldn't afford a camera at the time. So I bought a disposable camera and I was developing pictures like that. And I would take hours and like look up the right managers to send stuff to, look up the right publicists to send stuff to. Really know my shit. So if I ever get in that moment, I'm fully prepared. So I would say be fully prepared. Know the game. Study journalists. Y'all saw I could list 100 journalists that I really fuck with. Like know who you're talking to and know what you're talking about. Um, don't be afraid to challenge things. You know what I'm saying? Like break the rules within reason. Not like the rules of journalism, but like the rules of organizations. Like you could break the rules and improve something and not even know you're doing it. I would
That's
say
yeah.
read. I can't say that enough. Fucking read. Listen to music. Or if it's not music, just like know what you're talking about. And don't be afraid to send that email.
Mm.
That's my advice.
Some great points. And that last one is really, really key, and you can say email, you can substitute in other words. For example, I used to be afraid to DM people, and I actually created the breakthrough because it was my little shield, my little buffer, that I wasn't DMing them through my personal account, so I wouldn't feel bad if they didn't respond to me.
Yeah. No, that's very real. And like when your opportunity comes, grab it. Grab that motherfucker and go. Just go.
That's what I felt like with you guys, to be honest. With
Yeah.
Cup Break, I saw it as, hey, this is an opportunity. I saw you guys were like, it's not even work to me. This is
No.
something that I enjoy doing, and I've never written in my life before. But what we did, it was just something that I was like, wow, this is so fun. But I wouldn't have wanted to do it with a group where I'd have to pitch my idea. I did it with a group of guys that I knew had the same vision, and then it came together fucking perfectly.
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, Boom, I want to get into this other one. Greg, we'll start with you because you were bringing it up earlier. If you could interview one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
So it would be I'm going to give a different answer than the one I gave before because it's a toss up. I had said, I don't know if it was even recorded, but I had said Peep, Lil Peep. But I'm going to say Marilyn Manson. And I'm going to say him because he was the first person that made me feel comfortable being me. He was an outcast. He was the guy that went against the grain. He was the guy that said things that weren't always popular, but it was always meant with love, even though his music to the untrained ear would be demonic and would be hate, and it's far from it. He was it's hard to even talk about like what the impact that he did, but it was just like when you see somebody stand alone, there was nobody next to him. It was just this guy with this idea of the way he hears music and the way he sees the world, and that self-belief. It did so much for me. And I always think about something he said when he got blamed for the Columbine shooting. And the director asked him, and he said, what do you think, when you see what people say? And he said, I don't care what people think because people don't think. And when I was in high school, that's when I heard the quote. And I had friends, but my core, who I didn't fit in. And I liked the stuff that not really people did. And I always felt weird. And when I heard that, it grounded me. And even though I never met him, he was kind of like the friend I never had. Like we always kind of just had that understanding. So if I ever had the chance, I'd want to interview him. And to be quite frank with you, yeah, there would be a ton of questions, but at the end of the day, it would just be thank you. It would just be like, thank you for breaking down boundaries and making people feel comfortable being themselves in a society where it's really hard to be yourself when you don't see yourself in public.
100%. I love that answer. What about you,
Thanks.
Sam?
And I think, all right, so I'm going to say who I'd give the best interview to and who I would would love to do it personally. The best interview would be Drake. I would give Drake a run for his money. I would love to interview Drake. I'm a day one fan. He taught me how to edge up my beard. Like
That's
I've
so
been fucking
funny.
with Drake. I've been fucking with Drake since day one. So I would love to interview Drake. But like dead or alive, like who I'd love to sit down and just chalk it up with, like not even like just because it would be a great interview, just because it would be a great conversation. Kurt Cobain. I would
Mm.
love to interview Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain was like, not Kurt Cobain's, Kurt Cobain. Just so everyone knows, I do drinking my cup is cool, but I'm talking about Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. Just because I always loved how he carried himself in interviews, and he was just so such an intellectual and a lot of pain behind his lyrics, and I would love to like know what was going on back there. And yeah, that's my short answer.
You know, and I think Sam said it best. The best interviews aren't interviews. They're just conversations.
Yeah,
you know, and like yeah, like he said, like Marilyn Manson, Kurt Cobain. It's like, yeah, I got questions, but I mean, just to sit there and to listen, like I think that's just like a trait that we don't practice. Like listening is really important. Like sometimes in life, just be quiet, just sit back and observe and really listen to what people have to say. And I think, you know, I don't know, actually, you know what, can I answer a question right now?
Yes,
Because
of course.
I'm kind of leading into one. You were going to mention if you had 30 seconds, what was the question?
If you had 30 seconds, or if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say and why?
I would tell them to listen, to listen to people. People don't speak for attention. Attention comes. You can't stop attention. You do something great, something happens, tragedy, good moments, attention will be there. But when people are crying out and are screaming and are yelling, sit back and listen. Hear their stories. You will never step foot in their shoes. But if you can take a minute to really block out your mind and to stop putting your beliefs on people and to just have an open ear, my goodness, I don't know what world peace is, but boy, I think the first step is to just fucking hear people, man. I think that's really what it is.
I love that. Yeah.
How do I even follow that up?
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Nah, I think I would just tell people to try to understand what's going on and understand why things are perceived the way they are. And just like to do their homework on what's going on in the world and to hopefully find the answer is not as convenient and as well packaged as everyone puts it out to be. You know, these things take work. The things that are required to have our society be fully functioning and to be an equitable democracy, they take work. It's going to take more than ordering a book. It's going to take more than a black square. It's going to take real hard work, and y'all just going to have to do it.
Yeah. No, that's the truth. Very, very well said. Very
great answers.
Very,
yeah,
very
exactly.
well said.
All right, so we asked all those. Let's go down into what are both of your mindsets going into 2021?
I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm hoping that I can get somewhere, like a new avenue. I'd love to try something else outside of like the realm of journalism. I think I would love to see like what the other side looks like. I would love to take that next step. I'd love to do in-person events. I really hope that COVID's controlled. I really hope that I can like go outside and leave my house and take off these fucking sweatpants and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hope I can go out and I really want to take pictures more because that's honestly the thing that makes me the happiest. Writing's cool. I love the radio, but taking pictures is like, that was the coolest gig
You're
I possibly
in your element, yeah.
And it's funny because I never even thought about pictures. I never even thought about it. I never thought about photography. I never cared. I never owned a camera. It just kind of happened on accident, and I would love to do that. And that's my attitude, just like to grow and get bigger and try new things.
What about you?
I don't want to make it personal, but I would say to be to be more at peace with my mind. I know this is a music interview and I don't want to get weird, but anxiety is real. And as somebody who's, anxious a lot and his mind is kind of all over the place, in 2021, and this has been my thought for a while, is to just not be like as anxious, and to just kind of feel a little bit more grounded, and I don't want to say stable, because you say that and then people run and they say stuff, but to just like not overthink, and to just live in the moment, and to appreciate everything. Like that's something like that I'm really glad. I'm so sad that a pandemic happened at the cost that it happened. But boy, did we need to slow down as a nation. And there's so many things going on in this pandemic. So on a very personal level, it was nice to like just stop and to kind of just like reassess, and to like look in the mirror and be like, wow, like there's actually like things like I really want to work on. And now like the world is giving me a chance to work on that. And also working on myself, like the world that we live in, where we're seeing, injustices, and we're seeing all this stuff, and kind of seeing like the role that we can play. So I think, my mindset is to listen, to get at peace, and to get some stuff in motion, man, to see some action. And it's going to take a while, but I'd like to see some of the civil unrest. I'd like to see some progress, and some barriers pushed down in 2021, and that will come with getting back and getting outside.
Exactly. All right. And then what do you guys see in the next 5 years, 10 years for both your careers and personal lives?
I mean, I just want to be happy. All that other stuff can like take a back seat. As long as they got like a home, a dog, people who care about me, my career will be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would really like to workshop an artist. That's something I would really like to do in my time. I really like to like A&R an album. That's something that I'd love to take an album cover, like shoot a picture for that. I'd love to take a picture of Lil Uzi Vert. I would really like to be grounded and footed and know that I'm doing what I love and that it loves me.
I like that. I like that a lot. I would say to make be in charge of my life. Like know what I want, and go out and get it. I feel like there's so many like societal pressures, and so many people always telling people like what to do. And I want to be in control, and I want to make my decisions, and like Sam said, like being more grounded and putting these ideas out there that I have, like something I really want to do. Like I loved what Sam just said about like A&Ring an album. Like that's the coolest shit ever. I want to host like tiny desk concerts. Like I want to do something for Connecticut where people are playing music and we're putting it online in like the NPR style thing. So I think just like creating more, doing more stuff, and continuing to define my definition of success, which I don't really know what it is, but I know what makes me happy. And I just want to, keep chasing those feelings.
Awesome. I love it. Well, hey guys, do you have any more shout outs that you want to give before we end today's show?
Shout out my mom. Shout out my dad. Shout out the Independent. The reporter over at Stetson University, the newspaper. I gave him hell. Gave him absolute hell. They tried to fire me like damn near 3 times in college. Greg, you go, and I'll think of any more if I have any.
I want to shout out all the times. I want to shout out all the dark times. I want to shout out all the days when it wasn't like this. This has been a ride to get here. I've been doing journalism for a pretty hot minute, and starting my own magazine with Sam, not my magazine, but our magazine. That was the biggest milestone in my entire career. And like I said, it wasn't always like this. So to get to this point, I want to thank the days where it was rough, and it was rough on a lot of different fronts. Things have been really good, and I just want to shout out like all the mistakes and all the lessons I've learned that have gotten me to this point today, where I'm able to sit on an interview and sit here with both of y'all, two people that I like really appreciate and are very thankful to be around. So I want to shout out y'all, man, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to shout out just like, I told you about this earlier that like I had a rough track with journalism. It wasn't something I ever had. I realized I had a passion for. Like I read Rolling Stone all the time and shit like that. But I got laughed out of my high school newspaper. They wouldn't let me write a piece. I did an interview with the captain of the football team and they laughed me out. They were like, "Oh, is this a joke?" I failed journalism 101. They tried to fire me from the newspaper multiple times. They tried to fire me from the radio station. For breaking the rules.
But he kept going.
Yeah, man, but I kept going. It wasn't like on some like bad quality shit. It was because when they built the radio studio, they built it next to a bunch of study rooms and they gave me industrial speakers. So every time I would do my show, the head of the radio station would be like, "Hey, we just got 11 noise complaints." I was like, what the fuck do you want me to do? What the fuck do you want me to do about it? Yeah, shout out my camera. Obviously, Fujifilm, Japanese brand usually. I got a Kodak here. Shout out my camera, and yeah, just shout out my Aunt Susan. She's not here anymore, but she really got me into books, and she was always on my ass about grammar and shit like that. And yeah, like my whole family's like writers, so just shout out everybody. Shout out everybody who supported me. Shout out all of y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, shout out to my dad real quick, who had me when I was very little over the summers. He would have me journal every day. Whatever I did today, just write. And that was my first introduction to writing, and I fell in love with that. So shout out to him for giving me giving me the passion to write, and correcting me and helping me. And shout out to my mom for just being like a feisty New Yorker and teaching me how to fight, like not physically, but fight for my beliefs and my art, and like having a little bit of a thick skin, because like Sam talks about, like rejection and being pushed aside and stuff like that, and continuing to persevere. I definitely got that from her. I know both Sam and I experienced loss during this magazine. I'll let Sam speak on his if he would like to, but I know for me, my grandfather passed away about a couple weeks before this magazine went out, and I don't have
my condolences.
Oh, I know. I appreciate that, and to put something out there that I know he would be really proud of means a lot. It's a lot deeper than hip hop and music and art and culture. It's about having a purpose, and that means everything.
Yeah, my grandma passed while I was making this, and it definitely put a halt on things, and it definitely made it more of a struggle. But I know she'd be proud of like what I put together, and yeah,
100%.
And just a couple of professors and teachers. I know this is the longest shout out ever. Terry Deck, Artie Sabatelli, first people to ever get me to look at a book and be like, "Oh, this is cool." There's like a couple of professors in college, Antonio Galan, Dr. McFarland, like some people who really like. I was a rough student. I was a rough student for sure. I like spent most of elementary school like they put my desk outside the classroom because I would talk so much. I'm not even being funny. I'm not being funny at all, bro. Like I like set records for detentions. In high school, same shit. So for some people to like take some time and like realize there was something there, I appreciate y'all.
No, absolutely. And real quick, because Sam's absolutely right. Shout out to Mr. Iverson. He was the lead editor of my high school's newspaper. He gave me my first opportunity to write for any newspaper. To Preem for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime. Brian Slarity at the New Haven Independent, and the International Festival of Arts and Ideas, like that has opened up so many pathways. The entire New Haven arts community, Travis Carbonella, Tiffany Hopkins, a lot of studios, everybody there. Like this would not be possible if it wasn't for you. And to my friends who have just been supportive, funny, cool.
Friends.
Yeah, like y'all have just been awesome.
Jeremy Bronin, Robbie Dork, and Mercy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you want to get some more? Do some more? All right. Yeah, no, shout out to Christian, Luke, James, Yak, Nick, man, and I'm forgetting so many, but and James,
Taylor McGee.
Yeah, like shout out to all of y'all just for the fun times and for everything, and you gotta have a healthy balance between work and play. So it's
100%.
That's the longest shout out ever. We got to end it there, Greg.
Yeah, I'm about to go through. The
I love it though.
It's
yeah,
like
right. Start going down.
Shout out my mailman.
The last track on 2014 Forest Hills Drive.
Bro, I was just gonna literally, as you guys were talking, I was like, wow, this really reminds me of the last track. And like I said, I had those 2 projects that I had downloaded on my phone when I was on the train ride from New Jersey to Connecticut, and Forest Hills Drive was one of them. I'll let you know, I listened to that full outro with all the shout outs until like. So yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, no, shout out Lil Wayne.
Well, thank you both, guys. This was great, and this ends the last episode in the double digits. Thank you, guys. This is really awesome, and see you next week, CT.